Hello and welcome to Millennium's presentation on the Affordable Care Act. In this video we will cover the EE ACA Status Bulk Update utility. Some of the information discussed in this presentation is an interpretation of some of the components of the Affordable Care Act. You should confirm this information and how it affects your organization with your legal advisor or an ACA expert. The ACA mandate is based on the number of full-time or full-time equivalent employees an employer has. So one of the first steps in the process to prepare for the ACA reporting is to classify your employees. You will be classifying them based on their employee status, whether or not they're full-time or part-time, a variable hour employee, a seasonal employee, or an employee that has been exempt from the mandate. Let's start with full-time and part-time employees. A full-time employee has been defined by the ACA as those employees who work at least 130 hours in a month. Part-time employees are those employees that work less than 130 hours in a month. Full-time equivalence is a calculation that uses the hours of the part-time employees to derive how many full-time positions that would equal. Next is variable hour employee. A variable hour employee is when you cannot determine that the employee is reasonably expected to work an average of at least 30 hours per week. Please note the IRS publication for additional information about variable hour employees. Seasonal employees are those employees that work 120 or fewer days during the year. The seasonal employees can be excluded for purposes of determining your large employer status. To access the bulk update utility, from the Company Maintenance menu, select Company Setup. Once in Company Setup, look for the EE ACA Status Bulk Update tab. When you first open up the tab, you will see that you have some filters at the top of the screen, the grid where your employees are listed, and then some more fields at the bottom. The whole idea of the bulk update utility is to find some common denominators between your employees so you can mass update their status. This top section allows you to filter through your employee database to find your common denominators. First, we want to take a look at the effective date. This is the start date that is going to be entered for their ACA status. Since I'm dealing with the year 2015, I want everybody's start date to be January 1st, 2015. If, however, I had a new hire within the year, it will automatically override this January 1st date and use their hire date as their effective date. The rest of these fields allow me to filter through my employee database to find my common denominators. So as you can see right now, I've got some employees that already have a status and some that say no status. I want to take a look at all of the ones that say no status. Under the ACA status field, I'm going to click the drop down arrow, and this will show me all the possible entries for this field. One of them is no status. So if I click on that, you will see that it will filter my data, and I now have all of my employees that do not have statuses. If I knew what their status was just by looking at the list, I could go ahead and update them. However, since I do not know, I'm going to go ahead and use an additional filter. Under filter number 1, if you click on the down arrow, you will see that you have 4 choices for filtering. You can filter on whether or not the employees are auto-paid, their employee statuses, meaning active or terminated, their employment type, or their department. I am going to use department. Under value, it will give you all the valid entries for department. When I click the down arrow, I can pick all of the employees in management, field, maintenance, sales, or any employee that might not have a department. I'm going to start with sales and administration because I know that all of my employees that work in this department are full-time employees. So if I click on that, it will filter out all of the other department employees and leave only the employees that have no status and are in Department 400. Now I'm going to go to the bottom of the screen and assign the status to these employees. My first field is the new ACA status. If I click on the down arrow, you will see that you have the same options for ACA status as you do in the Employee ACA screen. For these employees, I'm going to select full-time as their status. The next two fields are whether or not these are variable hour or seasonal employees. They are neither, so I am going to leave it at the default, which is no. If you click on the down arrow, you will see your choices are default, use existing or no, yes they're variable, or no they are not. Same thing for the seasonal. And our final step is to select the employees, so when we click Update Selected, it will automatically update their status. To select all of the employees, you can click on Select All. Notice how it highlights all of the employees. If I do Unselect All, I could individually pick the ones that I want. But I want to update all of them. So I'm going to select all, and then once I hit Update Selected, it will give me the message that says, do you want to update the ACA settings for these selected employees? Once I hit yes, it will add an ACA status effective date 1/1/2015 and the full-time status. I'm going to select yes, and now it gives me the message that 6 employees have been updated. Click OK. And now, since those employees have a status, they no longer will show up for the no status employees of Department 400. At this point, you would continue filtering through your database to make sure all of your employees are coded. I would recommend, after you do an update, to go back and list all of your employees with the no status to make sure that you know how many are left, and continue finding filters that will help you find a common denominator and load in their status. This concludes our presentation on Millennium's Affordable Care Act Employee ACA Status Bulk Update utility.